Nicodemus here. On today's episode, I just want to discuss what do you think of altered states of consciousness and using it for awakening?
My first introduction to this was through Ram Dass. I started my early days studying shamanism and like teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda, and just familiarizing and learning a little bit about that. They were some of the Native Americans using peyote, and Ram Dass was a very interesting case because they had heard about psilocybin mushrooms in Mexico. One of a friend of theirs, the group that they all knew each other, went down and ate mushrooms with a medicine woman, and basically said, "This is what he sent back to like Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass, Timothy Leary. You need to come down here and try this because in 4 hours I learned more about myself and God than in all of our years of studying at Harvard." And they were like, "What?" And they, of course, they go, and then they discover LSD, and now they're doing all kinds of like, what the heck is this stuff? And they're doing, I mean, pushing the boundaries. They're all like psychologists, right, at Harvard, professors, researchers, very highly intelligent, and which is interesting because I wonder, Helen Schuckman being a psychologist at Columbia, like if they knew each other in that you're talking about in the 50s into the 60s, I'm sure they had heard about this, it would because when Richard Alpert, when they were doing it, I mean, they were doing things like locking themselves in a renting out almost like a floor of, or getting a warehouse or whatever. I think it was like a warehouse they had for 2 weeks just doing pushing the boundaries of LSD, like I, to where it's almost like you can't even trip any harder. You know what I mean? They're taking so much of it that their body is almost building up a tolerance. I mean, they're pushing every level of it. They don't really have the framework for these altered states of consciousness. And then eventually they got kicked out of Harvard for doing it. So Ram Dass was saying at that time, again, Richard Alpert saying, he said, I felt like the prize fighter who lost the fight, but everyone was looking at like lost the fight, but inside going like, you need to follow this. So he has a friend going to India, and he just decides, why don't I bring this stuff and start giving it out to people and traveling to India? Maybe I'll find someone who knows about it. So he's giving it to all kinds of people, all different substances and stuff and compounds and all different feedback back. And, you know, a meditator's like, meditation's better. And then, all this different stuff. So long story short, he goes and he has a dream, and I'm going to give this story and then I'll bring it to like my thoughts and my own experiences. Is that he has a dream. He's doing LSD at his mom's funeral, and he says like everyone's crying, but he's sitting there almost having a conversation with his mom, right? And he's like, "Whoa, what is?" And you can imagine as a psychologist at Harvard. So the night before, about a year later, it was on the year anniversary of his mom's death. He's out under the stars, and he just has his thought, and he thinks of her, and he's like gets emotional and cries, and he doesn't tell anybody about this experience. Just the next day, the guy he's with, who was like their tour guide, goes, "My visa, I'm having visa issues. I need to go see my guru." So Richard Alpert, Harvard psychologist, kicked out of Harvard, he goes, "All right, let's go." And this guy runs to going back. So now he goes to see this guy. Now Richard Alpert's driving him there, and the guy goes falls at the feet of this guru, and everyone's hanging out with the guru, and the guru looks at him, Richard Alpert. Somebody says in like I think Hindi, whatever they spoke it, he's big doctor in the United States. So the guru, Neem Karoli Baba, goes to him. He goes, "So you're a big doctor in the U.S." And They're translating this. He goes, "Is that your range?" He was driving like a Land Rover, a Range Rover. I think it was a Range Rover at that time. And he goes, "Is that your car?" He says, "Yes." You're a big doctor in the United States. Oh, that's your car? He goes, "Give it to me. I want it." And Richard Alpert's like, "This guy's weird. Like, what is this? This is weird. Can we get out of here?" That's what he's feeling. And the guru looks at him and goes, "You were out under the stars last night thinking about your mother. She died a year ago." And they're translating this. And in English, the guru doesn't speak English, and looks at him and goes, "Spleen." And his mom's spleen had burst. So Richard Alpert is like, freaks out. Like his mind, this is what he says. His mind goes to, what kind of CIA shit is this? Like, what the heck just happened? I didn't tell anybody about that. And how was he able to know that? And he said it's almost like his mind then just like fizzed, like it short circuited. And he had this feeling of like being home. And all of a sudden, this feeling of being home, and he just started crying. And his Neem Karoli Baba looks at him, he goes, you're now your name is Ram Dass, which Ram Dass means servant of God. So now his whole life changes, and Neem Karoli Baba goes, "You got the medicine?" And Richard Ram Dass is like, "Medicine?" And Bhagwan Das, who was like his tour guide, goes, "Maybe he's talking about the LSD." So he goes, "Give it to me, I want it." And Ram Dass gives him the LSD, and nothing happens to him. Now you can imagine he's like, "What? Whoa." And this becomes like a really big thing. He gave it to this guru. Now Ram Dass doesn't think that Richard Alpert took it. His guru took it. Excuse me. Ram Dass doesn't think that his guru Neem Karoli Baba took it. And about a couple months later, his guru knew. And now guru is a weird word in the West, right? All it means is guru, remover of darkness. So the Holy Spirit is ultimately the guru. Yeah. And any great teacher is like, I'm not the guru. God is ultimately the guru. So I'm just using it for terms and for us to be able to speak about it. So he goes, he says to him, he knows that he doesn't believe that he took it. So about a month or two later, he sensed it. So Neem Karoli Baba says to Ram Dass, "You got the medicine again?" And he takes it and he shows it to him, that he puts it on his tongue. Now, Ram Dass gives him even more this time, and he takes all of it. And he said, "I gave this old man enough to make an elephant think it had wings and could fly." And Neem Karoli Baba, his guru, looks at him, he goes, "Am I going to go crazy?" And Ram Dass goes, "Probably." And he's like super afraid. He's almost scared now. Really? Yeah. Now he's like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do to this old man? This is not going to be good." Because if this guy was faking it before, oh, this is going to be really bad. Like a bad experience to fake it. And now Neem Karoli Baba starts to act all crazy. And then nothing happens to him again. And this is what he says to Ram Dass. He goes, "This was known long ago." And he said it's a false sadhana. It's not a real spiritual practice. And now, granted, you're asking about compounds. I'm gonna then bring into my story about it. But it's like it's not like a true sadhana, I think is the word he used. He says love is a more powerful medicine because love slowly transforms you into what the psychedelic or the compound, the medicine, whatever you want to call it, only lets you see. So love slowly turns you into that. Whereas that's why it's a more powerful medicine, because it slowly transforms you into what the compound is letting you see. Then he said, but it is helpful to visit a saint because it strengthens your faith. Meaning when you take it, he goes, it lets you visit with Christ, but then you get kicked out. He goes, wouldn't it be better just to become Christ? He's like, but your medicine doesn't let you do that. He goes, but it is helpful to visit a saint because it strengthens your faith. So Ram Dass, they would do it like once a year with their eyes pointed towards God, which is what another guru, Meher Baba, had told them. If you do it in a calm space with your eyes pointed towards God, you that's the space to do it in. And if it's used for that, and like the course says, what is it for? I've had very profound experiences on them. I would say that because of them, I was able to grasp in a very deep way some of these teachings. And like Ram Dass was a very young age at 16. I mean, I was eating, psilocybin mushrooms at the day after my 17th birthday. So it was like I was already deep into these realms and all that. As later in life, like as I've done it, I don't really feel like a need to as much in the times of doing it. They're very revelatory experiences, but a lot of that, like working through stuff and all of that, like there's some people that relapse on drugs doing it. There's some people who have revelatory experiences. There's some people that have psychotic breaks. There's like all this stuff. I think, what is it for? And I love what Ram Dass's teacher said. Love is a more potent medicine because it slowly transforms us over time into what these realms let us see. And it definitely is. I've seen tremendous and powerful understandings and deepening of people in their soul from it as well. So the question is, what are we using it for? And I believe that we have these compounds. You could say, from a Course in Miracles perspective, they're magic. The thing is everything's magic. I mean, meditation's magic, breath work, all these things, like anything, eating food, drinking coffee, like all this stuff has an impact. So what is it for? I mean, you look at something like, in doing research, psilocybin mushrooms are the greatest antidepressant that we have on the planet. I mean, if somebody is struggling with depression, there's nothing better on the planet than using psilocybin mushrooms. Somebody else could use it and start drinking alcohol with it and then just use it to get high and escape. And they might have like paranoid experiences. I think, though, that these compounds, something like even a mushroom, is so. I mean, there's so many theories around it, and they're very much a gift in all forms, not just the ones that alter our minds and how they are. It's the only thing that grows and lives that doesn't kill something else to come about. It's like the only truly Buddhist, if you will, living organism on the planet. Everything else is living off of something else where it's, I mean, how could you tell me that's not like from beyond, or right? And then you eat it and you heal, and the mind can heal and remember God. So again, what is it for? But this is the answer in the end. The Holy Spirit is the only teacher. The Holy Spirit is the only guru. The Holy Spirit is the only medicine. The Holy Spirit's the only therapist. The Holy Spirit is the only shaman. And the Holy Spirit is in our thoughts, in our mind, in our heart. And that is the direct path.